Pleased to be joined by a guy who spent 2 years in the Greater Ontario Hockey League, a former member of the St. Thomas Stars, most recently with the Komoka Kings, and one of the newest members of the Boston Bruins organization, selected in the fifth round, 157th overall by the Bruins in the 2026 NHL Draft, Jacob Vandeven. Jacob, thanks so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate this. Congratulations on all the success over the past couple of weeks. What's it been like? I'm sure it's been a bit of a whirlwind here recently since you got drafted by the Bruins.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a huge whirlwind. I wouldn't have expected any of this 3 months ago, let alone even 1 month ago. So it's been crazy. I can't thank my past coaches, my family, the Knights, and everyone that's behind the scenes that have helped me get here. But yeah, no, it's just been a whirlwind. It's been crazy, but I've enjoyed it so much so far.
I want to talk to you about your time in the GOHL, the Knights, and your development in a second, but I want to stay on draft day for just a moment. Where were you when your name got announced? What was the draft day experience like for you? Where were you when your name got called?
Yeah, so I was here at my house. We were watching on TV. I had my grandparents over, and then I had uncle and cousin over as well. I kind of went into it no expectations, and then we saw my name get called, and I kind of went in shock. My family kind of went up celebrating and stuff like that, and yeah, no, it was a moment I'll never forget for sure.
Did you know the Bruins were interested? Did you know it was a possibility to get drafted by Boston this year?
Yeah, I talked to them before. Obviously nothing's guaranteed or anything like that. So as I said, I kind of went in with no expectations, and with each pick, you kind of hope that your name comes up. And when I saw my name, when Boston selected me, it just meant so much to me.
Well, after you get drafted, the Bruins fly you out to Boston for development camp. What was that experience like at your first ever NHL development camp?
Yeah, no, I was for sure a little nervous. Obviously, flying away alone, I've never done that before. So, but yeah, no, it was a great week. Met everyone down in the organizations, all the guys, stuff like that. So they're real welcoming. They got a lot of knowledge. They know what they're talking about and stuff like that. So just listening to them, enjoying the week, having a good time, kind of learning what the organization and the city is about. But yeah, no, it was unbelievable week.
Who are some of the guys that really stood out to you that were over there? Were there any notable alumni or names that people might recognize that helped, contribute to your development camp experience?
Yeah, well, I saw actually some of the players down there. I saw McAvoy, Pasternak, and then Swayman. So it's kind of cool to see your childhood superstars, guys you look up to your whole life, down and meet them and stuff like that. But yeah, no, everyone in the organization, it was such a great week. They ran such a good camp and stuff like that, and it's definitely a week I'll never forget.
Yeah, no big deal, eh? Just NHL All-Stars, Olympians over there. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I
Exactly.
want to talk to you about your time in the Greater Ontario Hockey League. You spent 2 years in the GOHL, the first one with St. Thomas, last year with Komoka. What can you say about the 2 years that you spent in the GOHL?
Yeah, no, I think it was great for my development. After the OHL draft, kind of every kid, they have hopes of going into the OHL their first year. So I think, just trusting the process, developing in the GOJ. There's a lot of great coaches, great players and stuff like that, and a lot of great, NHLers and stuff like that have came through this league. So I think just, trusting the process, listening to your coaches, coming hard to work every day, and um, each and every day, and taking that towards that next step of getting into the OHL, it's huge.
Well, you mentioned some of the NHL guys that have come through this league. You played for two franchises that developed a couple of good ones here recently. Oliver Bonk, who contributed to the Flyers this season, played for the St. Thomas Stars. Easton Cowan, a Komoka King with the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. You went to Komoka this season, and they put an A on your jersey. You were an assistant captain. You were part of that leadership group. What can you say about the development off the ice that you got in Komoka, just being a leader in junior hockey, in addition to the stuff that you learned on the ice?
Yeah, no, it's definitely an honor to wear a letter on your jersey, no matter what league, what sport, and stuff like that. So I think, just taking it in, you obviously have the responsibility to lead by example, whether that's in the room or on the ice or off the ice and stuff like that. So I think, just being someone that the guys can talk to, always being positive, pushing each other each and every day, and just being a great teammate.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so your story is pretty unique, Jacob, because you were drafted into the OHL as a forward. You
Yeah.
played in St. Thomas a couple of years ago as a forward. You start the year in Komoka as a forward, but then you make the transition to defense and you get drafted to the NHL as a defenseman. You play OHL games as a defenseman. So talk me through those meetings. When did the Kings approach you and say, "Hey, we want to try you on D"? And what was your initial reaction to hearing from them that, you might have a future as a defenseman?
Yeah, and it was brought up a little bit, but nothing kind of really came out of it the first couple months, and then like I kind of had the idea in the back of my mind, um, and then Johnny, Rich, and Roop, they sat me down in the meeting and they're like, "Listen, I've been practicing on D for a little bit here at practices, and they're like, listen, we're gonna put you in the game tomorrow. Um, you're gonna try out D. You're gonna see if you like it, like give it a try for a couple of games here." And I was down to do it. I was willing to give it a shot. So I kind of stuck with it. And then, 5, 10 games passed and I kept enjoying it. I kept feeling more confident. I thought I was, learning a lot and improving really quickly. So I kind of stuck with it. And yeah, it's been honestly unreal since then.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What was the process like, converting to a defenseman? What were some of the things that you had to learn and maybe change in your game as you moved from being a forward to a D-man?
Yeah, I think, being a centerman in the defensive zone helps out a lot. It's kind of similar playing man on man. Like when you're center, you're always helping out the D in the corners and stuff like that and following a guy out front of the net. So I think that was kind of similar. I think, the biggest adjustment was just learning how to defend the rush, whether it's 1-on-1s, 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, and stuff like that. So I think, just working on your gap, your speed, your backward skating, your stick, and everything like that. And then also just learning how to support your partner, whether it's in the O zone on the blue line or in the D zone and stuff like that. I think that was those were the major things that I kind of had to work on.
Well, the London Knights traded for your rights from Owen Sound in January. You played a few games in the regular season for London and then played a significant time in the playoffs as well for the Knights. What can you say about the organization in London? What has your time in the OHL been for you? Because obviously the GOHL is now an OHL development league, and the goal is to get guys to that next level, and you're certainly one of them.
Yeah, no. Well, obviously, it's the best organization of junior hockey. Mark, Dale, Dylan, Steady, all of them. They've been through this a lot. They've developed a lot of players and NHL superstars and stuff like that. So I think, you just got to trust them with everything. You got to listen to them, work hard at practice every day. You're always learning something new down there. You always got to push yourself. They run great practices. They push you to your best. So I think just fully trusting them is what you got to do, and just buying in every day and giving your effort.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of buy-in to make a transition like you did from forward to defense, and certainly it has worked out in spades for you and for the Kings last year, the Knights moving forward. As you move to the OHL full-time next season, then hopefully to a long career in the National Hockey League with the Bruins, Jacob, what's one thing that you'll always remember from your time in the Greater Ontario Hockey League?
Yeah, I think it's just the teammates and the coaches and the bonds I created. Everyone down here is great guys. Everyone's great to you. So I think, you always, you make lifelong friends on every team that you play on. So I think, the friendships and the bonds and stuff like that and the memories is for sure the thing I'll remember in the future.
Love it. Glad to hear you had such a positive experience in the GOHL. Listen, Jacob, thanks again for taking the time to do this. Congratulations once again on all the success, and we can't wait to see what's next for you down the road.
Thank you so much.